You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ MV Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
South Carolina's own, my South Carolina brethren.
Bakari Sellers.
That's right.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. What's going on? Thanks for having me again. It's a pleasure to be back.
People always ask me, who is this Bakari Sellers person? I'd be like, he was the youngest African-American to ever be elected in office, right?
I was the youngest state legislator in the country, youngest black elected official in the history of South Carolina, and I just made a little history along the way, and now I get a chance to sit here and hang out with you guys this morning.
You are a House member from 06 to 014.
Correct.
You're an attorney.
Yes.
You went to Morehouse.
I did.
You've earned your voice.
Yeah, I ran for lieutenant governor in 2014, and now I'm the second youngest, I think, political commentator over at CNN. So I get a chance to do that.
So you vacated your seat, though.
I gave up my seat when I ran for lieutenant governor.
Okay.
And you lost lieutenant governor.
I did. I mean, I think it wasn't my time. It was very hard to be young, to be black, to be a Democrat, and to be a young black Democrat in South Carolina at that time. And I'm coming back. It was a hell of a race, and I gave it my all. But just wasn't successful. That happens in politics.
So I wondered if you was coming back, though, because it seemed like you're doing the commentator thing on TV now. Like you haven't really focused on politics lately.
Politics is about opportunity. I mean, you got to be prepared for any opportunity that presents itself, and I'm prepared for that opportunity whenever it may happen. But right now, I kind of fashion myself after you guys a little bit, just giving a voice to the voiceless. I mean, I'm from Denmark, South Carolina. They listening this morning, where we got 3 stoplights and a blinking light. And so every time I'm on CNN or on The Breakfast Club, my mama and her friends, they all texting me and giving me a lot of love. So it's good to have all those people supporting me and giving them a voice.
And you got a hell of a legacy. Your father, Cleveland, was a civil rights activist.
Yeah. I mean, my father almost gave up his life so that I could sit here with you today.
The Orangeburg Massacre.
He was shot along with 28 others. 3 were killed: Henry Smith, Samuel Hammond, and Delano Middleton, February 8th, 1968. And so for me, this is not just something I read about in history books. The struggles that we've had, the freedom struggle, as I call it, is something very real, something that's a part of my family. And it's always cool when you can just call your best friend, which is my father, and he also be a hero. So.
How does he feel about you being so involved in politics, though?
He loves it. I mean, but I always talk to him. I support Hillary Clinton. He supports Hillary Clinton.
Now let's talk about that too.
Yeah,
why do you endorse
you're endorsing
Hillary Clinton?
Hillary Clinton. Now, a lot of people are on the fence.
A lot of people are. Yeah.
On what they want to do. Some people are Bernie Sanders. Some people are Hillary Clinton. Some people are Ted Cruz. Clearly, some people are Donald Trump.
Clearly.
All right. So let's talk about you and supporting Hillary Clinton. What made you decide that?
Well,
why?
I mean, I think there are 3 reasons. The first is very personal for me. I guess it's a lot like you, Angela. I mean, you've shattered a lot of glass ceilings in your media career and your career in general. And Envy, you have 3 daughters or 2 daughters and one.
I got 2 daughters
and one on the way.
2 sons, yeah.
And you got 2 daughters as well. And I have a stepdaughter, and I really want to be able to one day look them in the eyes and truly tell them that there's nothing they can't be. That they can be anything in the world they dream of, including President of the United States. It's that last ultimate glass ceiling that has to be cracked. And I'm not saying just support Hillary Clinton because she's a woman, but she's honestly one of, if not the most qualified person ever run for president of the United States. So that's first. And second is more policy driven because, I mean, if you look at where we are today, we were at a point where we were losing 300,000 jobs a month, where the stock market was at 8,000 when Barack Obama took office. I mean, unemployment rate was sky high. And the president has made so many strides, so many great strides economically and socially and everything else. And I want somebody who can build on and protect that legacy. And that's Hillary Clinton. And the last part, and the New York Daily News just was quoted as saying that she is a super prepared warrior realist. I mean, Hillary Clinton's a fighter. I mean, however you feel about her, from when she got started in politics, from the early 90s all the way to now, whether or not you're talking about the Benghazi Committee or whatever she's gone through, I mean, she's been a fighter, man, and she's always come out not necessarily unscathed, but on the right side of history. So I'm here with her, and with every candidate, there are ups and downs. But I hope people get on board. I mean, at the end of the day, though, vote. I mean, New York is so important.
Right.
And vote just because of the reasons we talked about earlier. I mean, my father and John Lewis and Julian Bond, may he rest in peace, and so many others have given up their lives for this right. So make sure you go out and vote.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize that out of all the candidates, there's going to be things you don't agree with because some people will be like, well, Hillary did this and Bernie Sanders said this, but there's always things you don't agree with.
Yeah, I mean, and don't be intellectually lazy. I mean, a lot of times we just get intellectually lazy and we fall back into caricatures and we read a headline and we say, "Oh my God, this happened. This candidate is
my
that."
God, Hillary was dabbing.
Yeah, I mean, let's.
You didn't agree with that either, though.
No, I didn't, and that's what people always say. People always look at me. They're like, "Oh, you getting paid, man? You a sellout." I'm not getting paid by anybody. I mean, that's not what I'm doing. I mean, I support people because my heart is there. And yes, I mean, they're like, "You never challenge Hillary Clinton." And I was like, when Hillary was talking about Hillary es mi abuela and dabbing, I mean, I thought that those things were too far. I mean, there's no need to do that. Let's talk about policy issues that directly affect African Americans. Let's talk about mass incarceration. Let's talk about rebuilding African American wealth. I mean, let's talk about these issues that are important to people of color.
Why don't people trust Hillary Clinton?
I mean, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that anybody who's been in politics and been, Time Magazine's most admired woman in the world for over 2 decades, you're bound to have these narratives that arise. And a lot of times we fall back into just believing those narratives. I mean, the Republican Party has been defining Hillary Clinton since the early 90s.
It's those emails, too.
And those emails came.
So overly discussed.
And those emails have come out. I mean, she's the only person. She literally said, "I want to see all y'all's emails," by the way. Yeah. And she gave 55,000 emails. And what do we see? That she can barely email? I mean, I had an opportunity to hang out with her in Columbus a few weeks ago, right before the Ohio primary. And I was like, I wanted to FaceTime my stepdaughter, Kai. And we were FaceTiming, and she was like, "Man, this is amazing. FaceTime is an amazing thing." And I was just sitting here like,
She's 70 though.
But we do this every day.
But why not Bernie Sanders? What was the reason why you didn't endorse Bernie?
Well, I mean, to be completely honest, I mean, I think I share the sentiments of many, if not everyone. When you meet Bernie Sanders, you can't help but like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is endearing, and I don't have anything against him. And I will say this very clearly: if Bernie Sanders is the nominee, I'm supporting Bernie Sanders. However, at this time, at this moment, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said it best. It's about the fierce urgency of now. We need someone not who can make these promises, but someone who can follow through. Someone who can deliver. I mean, right now, when you're talking about going to Washington, D.C., and you have Mitch McConnell, who is the Senate Majority Leader, and Paul Ryan, who simply don't want the president to be able to have any level of success. I mean, we see this with the Supreme Court justices. Mitch McConnell said that he wanted this president to be a failure. When we see these things, we know that we need somebody who can literally go down there and get something done. And when you look at Bernie Sanders' records, with all due respect, being in Congress for over 20 years and not having much to show for it, that is a true indictment on his record. I mean, you have to begin to talk about those things. Mm-hmm. And so that is one reason, if not the largest reason, that I just didn't want to or couldn't get over that hump.
So basically you're saying a lot of the policies that he wants to implement, he couldn't even do on a local level.
Well, I mean, and that's a real conversation that has to be had. I mean, the fact of the matter is that Bernie Sanders has passed, one piece of legislation that's very important. It reformed the veterans affairs in our country, and you can't deny that. But what else? Can you name two things that Bernie Sanders has passed since he's been in the United States Congress, and most people cannot. And so, I mean, you have to begin to talk about these things and people who've really done tangible things to move this country forward.
Now, I'm surprised. Your father, Cleveland, was a civil rights activist. I would think that he would kind of support Bernie over Hillary.
No, I mean, I think you have many civil rights activists. I mean, I'm not alone in this journey. I mean, you got John Lewis, of course, but people that we all respect, like Michael Eric Dyson, is on board with Hillary Clinton. I mean, you have, at the end of the day, I love the discussion on social media, although sometimes it delves into the petty. But I love the discussion that we as African Americans are having, because a lot of times, and I have to tell my brothers at CNN, or sometimes you watch it at Fox News or MSNBC or wherever else, I'm like, we need to raise the level of discussion that we're having. We need to get beyond the petty. And people want to say, who said this in 1993? Oh my God. I mean, but how does that get my people out of jail today? Right. Let's talk about now and moving forward.
What would you do if Donald Trump became president?
I would probably call dibs on the right side of the plantation. No, I would, I don't have a lot of respect politically or otherwise, for someone who can treat other human beings with that type of visceral disgust. And I think that the discriminatory, language that Donald Trump uses towards Arab Americans, Hispanic Americans, women, African Americans has no place in this discourse. I think it's dangerous. I think it's despicable. And for me, it's very scary because my father lived through 1968, and Donald Trump reminds me every bit of 1960.
But isn't
Would
it
you
scary
swing
that
on
so
him,
many
though?
people?
No.
Doesn't it scary that so many people are supporting him though? Like that's
that's
what shows
probably the biggest
realness of America, that a lot of people feel that way.
Because Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders speak to something though, and you can't discount that.
Right.
They do speak to an anger. I mean, people are tired. People are fed up.
Yeah.
I mean, people are tired of their wages not increasing. So yeah, there's a fear, there's an anger out there. And although I don't want to say that those supporters are the same, because they're not, and I don't want my mentions to go crazy, they're not the same. But they do speak to that same visceral anger and disgust. And so, I mean, Donald Trump has identified that. And but for Bernie Sanders, the Democratic Party may have missed that. So he does play an extremely positive role in this race.
I'm not afraid of Trump anymore, though. I feel like Trump is one of those scares in America, like Ebola, white rappers. Like, it's not going to happen.
Some people feel like if he's the Republican
But you have white
nominee-
rappers who achieve greatness, like Eminem.
Yeah, but he was really great. Eminem
Right.
deserved his position.
Yeah.
It's not happening for Trump. It's other white people more powerful than Trump who don't want Trump.
I mean,
in that position.
what you have to understand about Donald Trump is, one, I don't think Donald Trump is racist.
Mhm.
I think Donald Trump uses racism as a part of political means, which is even more dangerous. I mean, I think he understands what type of discourse plays. He says, if I can speak like most people, or not most, but some people are speaking around their kitchen table, maybe I can talk to them. And to be completely honest, there are people in this country who are having discussions that sound just the way Donald Trump
absolutely.
talks.
It's like racial fear mongering.
Exactly.
Like when you hear Bill O'Reilly say, "Hey, these guys have tattoos on their foreheads," like
Black men.
education.
no education. That scares people. People think that they have.
But
those
even more, but
generalizations.
see, I mean, they say that, but you know what scares them even more is a room like this, where you got all these people of color who are able to have an intellectual discussion about politics, and we may disagree and differ, but we come out smarter for it. And we're talking to millions of people right now. They're going to come out smarter for it. That's what scares them more than the asinine comments they make on a regular basis.
Don't you think it would be great for Hillary Clinton if Donald Trump was the nominee?
I think I would love to see that. I told Anderson Cooper this week that it's a battle for the soul of our country, Clinton versus Trump. I think that it's either going to be Trump or Cruz. I think Cruz is a little bit easier because he doesn't change the map. I mean, you got to defend Michigan. You got to defend New York. You got to defend these blue-collar areas if Donald Trump is the nominee. And so, I guess that's beneficial to you guys because you all will play a huge role. You might have Donald Trump on the Breakfast Club one day if he happens to be the nominee.
Do you feel like young people aren't excited to vote this term?
I think that we have to do a lot better job. I'm 31 years old, and it's incumbent upon all of us. And I tell the Clinton campaign all the time, especially young voters of color, we got to get people engaged. And it takes more than just taking. You got to talk about issues that matter. I mean, it takes more than just having, the newest celebrity out there endorsing your cause. I mean, you got to talk to people about how their pocketbooks are going to change. You got to talk to people about how college is going to be more affordable, how you going to get their brother out of prison for that drug offense. I mean, you got to talk to people about these issues on a very basic level. And I'm not sure we're having those discussions in those mediums. That's why 15 years ago, elected officials weren't coming to the Breakfast Club or this type of vein, or weren't using social media. There weren't these platforms. And now, because we're so interconnected and the world is flat, because of that
interconnectivity. Is not flat, B.O.B. The world.
Because of that interconnectivity, it's pretty cool. So now they have to come here. This is a necessity.
Well, Hillary turned us down a couple times, right?
She's turned us down a few times.
I think they're working on it, though, from what I understand.
I'm pushing
Bakari
for
has been trying
Hey,
hard for it.
listen. I am a diehard Breakfast Club fan, so I'm pushing forward.
But I didn't know that they did such an in-depth vetting. Like, they were sending me old videos that I posted. Remember when I had the Hillary mask for Halloween?
I'm getting text messages and emails like, "Hey, your boy Charlamagne did this," and I'm sending it to him. I'm like,
yeah, but you can't be afraid of the question. One thing about Bernie was just like, let's do it. He didn't care.
But you can't be afraid of the discussion. And one thing about supporting Hillary is people always want to ask you. They say, well, she used the word super predator in 1994. And, for me, that's indefensible. There was no excuse for it then. There's no excuse for it now. I can't defend it. She couldn't defend it. She apologized for it. Right. You got to move forward. But then my next question to you is, so how do you remedy these complexities, this ball of complexities that is mass incarceration? Let's have that discussion now after we get past what was said in 1994.
Now, let's talk about that. I saw you tweet about mass incarceration, and somebody said to you, but the Clintons are the reason why it exists.
Yeah, and I think I said like those two by themselves, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that both sides have delved into the petty in this discussion. I mean, to say that the Clintons themselves are responsible for mass incarceration is just not factually accurate. I mean, I think we all know about the war on drugs that started in the Reagan administration.
Nixon.
And excuse me, Reagan and Nixon, actually. And so you're right. And so there was this effort to make sure that, especially persons of color who I hear suffering through this crack epidemic, went to jail for a long time. But let me also be clear that the crime bill of 1994 didn't help. In fact, it exacerbated mass incarceration. There was nobody, and I can't sit here and say that it was a good bill because it really wasn't. But there are a lot of people who are complicit in that. There's fault that lays at the hands of Bill and Hillary Clinton. There's fault that lays at the hands of the Congressional Black Caucus members that voted for it. There's fault that lays at the hands of Bernie Sanders. And so now, once you hold all of these people accountable, now what? I mean, we have 2.2 million people that are in prison. And, of those 2.2 million, only 10% of those are in federal prisons. So a lot of those people are in state penitentiaries. And how do we make sure that we're passing laws on the state and local level, and the Department of Justice is doing what they need to do to make sure that these people who don't belong there are not there, and these fathers actually get home with their children?
Now, you said Hillary apologized for the super predator comments, but Bill, I think it was this past weekend when he was talking to the Black Lives Matter activists, he reinforced them, agreed with them. So
one thing, and I told that I spoke to the campaign, and I speak to a lot of times. It's very hard for people who are not people of color to understand the very specific pain we go through. And so, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton had to go through that, and I think President Clinton's going through that, especially understanding what Black Lives Matter means. I mean, it speaks to a very specific pain. I don't know if you all know the name of Elijah Pontoon and Lakia Hicks, but I've been tweeting about them a lot recently. They were the couple in Aiken, South Carolina, that just got pulled over, and she got her shirt lifted up on the side of the road, and the police decided they were going to give him a cavity search on the side of the road in broad daylight. And so these things still happen, and that wouldn't happen to the local meth dealer. And it's just these. And
the local meth dealer is white usually.
Yeah. I mean, and the irony in this story is that no drugs were found. This young man didn't have any drugs. All he had was a paper tag. So change your tag.
Didn't even find.
Change your tags, Envy. Get your paper tags off. So people don't understand that, and we're trying to get people to understand the issues that we go through. But back to the point with Bill Clinton, what you saw two groups of people literally talking past each other. You saw Bill Clinton talking past those protesters. You saw those protesters talking past Bill Clinton. And that's not a healthy discussion. It's not. And the term super predator is indefensible, no matter the context. I mean, Hillary Clinton always says that she was talking about drug cartels and gang members, and that's fine. But that term has no place in our political discourse.
Now, I'm gonna be honest. I don't have a problem with what Bill and Hillary said. The problem I have is when they talk about super predators but don't address the system that created the super predators. And
that's the discussion that we have to have. And I mean, it's more than that. I mean, it's that it's the mandatory minimums that are in place now. So if you get caught with this amount of drugs, but it's your first time. I mean, I'm representing various people right now who get caught, and it's their first time ever getting in trouble with anything. But due to the amount of weight it may be, and they might have just been a mule, but due to the amount of weight it may be, I mean, they're going to jail for the rest of their life. Mandatory time.
Especially those women who are actually doing stuff for their boyfriends.
Correct. And this ain't a federal issue. This is not a federal this is something that's on the state level. And yes, you have those federal mandatory minimums. And so when I talk about the complexities, I mean, you have to unravel it all. But to say that Bill and Hillary are responsible for mass incarceration, it takes away from the historical context, but also the social and economic context for why we have all these people in prison today. I mean, let's have that discussion.
Gotcha. Now, have you read Michelle Alexander's article about why Hillary Clinton doesn't deserve the black vote?
Oh, I don't debate Michelle Alexander. Michelle Alexander's brilliant, but I definitely read it.
I just want to read a couple of these points and see what you think about them. She said that Hillary embraced former President Ronald Reagan's agenda on race, crime, welfare, and taxes.
I mean, I think that I would disagree to a certain extent because, while people talk about and we are relitigating the Clinton presidency right now, and that's fine. But people don't talk about Hillary Clinton and the CHIPS program. Hillary Clinton is the reason we have CHIPS, which is the Children's Health Insurance Program, which is how 6 million kids in this country got insurance, many of which were color. We don't talk about the Earned Income Tax Credit, which is, a lot of people know what the Earned Income Tax Credit is because that's basically a redistribution of wealth where, you can file for this tax credit and the working class and the working poor get an opportunity to reap those benefits, which is a benefit of the Clinton era. And people also don't talk about the fact that, the wages that were made by African Americans were actually up during that time period. So, yeah, I don't mind. I mean, listen, if Hillary Clinton wants to take credit for a part of the legacy, she got to take credit for the entire legacy.
Absolutely.
You can't pick and choose. However, the fact of the matter is it goes both ways. So if we want to talk about mass incarceration, let's also talk about the CHIPS program. I mean, let's have a full discussion and dialogue about not only where we were, but how far we've come.
She also said, Marcel, that she panders to blacks as Bill did. Clinton mastered the art of sending mixed cultural messages, appealing to African Americans by belting out "Lift Every Voice" and "Sing" in black churches, while at the same time signaling to poor and working class whites that he was willing to be tougher on black communities than Republicans had been.
I mean, again, that if you look at that and you don't add context, like who had the most diverse cabinet in history prior to where we are today? Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm. Bill Clinton got more cabinet secretaries of color than any president before him. Now, is that saying a whole lot? But let's put everything in context. Let's fully flesh out this discussion if we're going to have it. But the fact is, I hear all of that, and I was 8 when Bill Clinton got elected. Mm-hmm. But today, let's talk about today and the issues and who's best prepared to face the issues we have today. And I think that if you, for example, the New York Daily News just sat down and interviewed both of them. And the New York Daily News just came out and endorsed Hillary Clinton. Mm-hmm. But if you look at both of those interviews, then say who's better prepared for today. That's
no question Hillary's the most experienced, but I just feel like why should we believe Hillary when 20 years ago she supported a lot of things that hurt the black community?
I think that that's a legitimate question, and you have to hold her accountable because of the unintended consequences of mass incarceration. Mm-hmm. You have welfare reform. You cannot avoid these things. But I also want you to in that what she did in the 90s. You also have to say, well, black wages did go up in the 90s. You do have to say, well, health insurance. People talk about single payer health care all the time. Well, it was called Hillary Care before it was Obamacare. She was the one on the front lines fighting, and the CHIPS program. The list goes on and on and on. And so, you have to put all of those things in context and then look and see what she says today.
Do you think Hillary Clinton will get a lot more bills passed than Barack Obama was able to?
It's tough. I think that Barack Obama's gone through more obstruction than any president ever.
Mm-hmm. And he did a great job, too.
And he did it. And he's doing a great job. January 20th of 2017, I'm going to cry.
To do got blocked.
Yeah, I'm going to cry on Barack Obama's last day. I don't think people fully understand the amount of obstruction that he went through. Every day you go to work, somebody's standing in front of the studio or messing with your signals or just saying you can't even do your job
Everything
today.
you tried to do, they were like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Yeah. Or your boss is down here. You're not going to interview them today. They don't deserve it. Will she face that type of obstruction? This may just be me being jaded, but probably not.
Right.
And I think that I don't think any of the candidates running today would face the level of obstruction that Barack Obama faced. Simply because of the fact that Barack Obama is an African American male, and I'm sure that I'm going to get a lot of hate from that. But that's the fact. Being an African American in this country or a person of color in this country is just a difficult plight.
Have you read Michael Eric Dyson's new book?
Of course.
That's exactly what he speaks about. How and he feels like Hillary or Bernie could get more done for African Americans because they're white.
Well, and then you should also read Yes, She Can. Which is a Michael Eric Dyson piece that he wrote, I believe, in The Atlantic. Mm-hmm. And it talks about the fact of what she can get done, what Hillary Clinton can get done. Hillary Clinton's not a perfect candidate. I don't think you're ever going to find a perfect candidate.
There's no perfect candidate.
Yeah. But I do believe that it's an awesome opportunity to make history again in this country.
Now, is running for president something that you have on your brain for some time in the future?
Not really. And the reason being is because it's a tough trajectory. I do want to help out everybody I can in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. I do think my future is there.
Mine too.
Yeah, come on back home. Yeah, but I really don't know. That's tough. To be president of the United States is a very difficult task. But I can promise you this: if I ever run for president of the United States, I'm probably gonna make the announcement on the Breakfast Club.
There you go. It's funny because you turned down a position with President Obama's administration back in 2008. Why?
I did because. I just felt there was so much work to do in South Carolina. Like I tell people, we just got the Confederate flag down recently. Right. We still have schools where the heating and air don't work, where infrastructure's falling apart. Mm-hmm. And you can't turn your back on the people who've given you so much. I'm a firm believer in that.
But we have this conversation with other South Carolinians. Like sometimes you have to do things from the outside in. Like being with the Obama administration would have gave you a bigger position of power to be able to help South Carolina even more.
But I stayed there, ran for lieutenant governor, and I tell people I fell up. So now I get to hang out in New York. I'm not a part of the Clinton campaign by any stretch, but at least they listen to me when I email them.
Yeah.
And I work for CNN, so I get to have a voice, and I practice law every day. And so, it's cool. And when you have cases like the one I was just telling you about with Lakia Hicks and Elijah Pontoon, even though I'm not working on it, I still get to uplift those people in my voice. And so. Sometimes you got to be inside to make it work. And when you come back home and build your house in Monk's Corner, we'll welcome you back.
Or Columbia. But what you mean, welcome back? I'm always there. Stop it. Now I saw you on Cornel West. Saw you on CNN with Cornel West, and he didn't seem too pleased with your support of Hillary.
Yeah, and at the end of the debate, I mean, first of all, when people don't understand, like you all may get it, but sometimes people don't understand. You got that little producer in your ear that's yelling rap, because you got to. And so he was saying some things, and Cornel West was going down this litany of, all these civil rights activists, and your father wouldn't. And I was like, I wanted to respond and say, my father supports Hillary Clinton, and it's okay to be on a different part and have a respectful dialogue back and forth about this political process, but don't couch it as for some reason my support of Hillary Clinton is contrary to the plight of the civil rights movement, because I don't see it that way. I see it as a continuation thereof. I mean, I'm truly a child of that movement, and I take that very, very seriously, and I wear that on my back and in my heart every day. And my job, I think my purpose here is to not necessarily uplift black versus white, but to uplift the haves versus have-nots. Gotcha. And we're in a firm fight of that nature.
How do you feel about establishment politics, being that you are the son of a civil rights activist?
I've never really been establishment. I mean, I know people. I say I support Hillary Clinton, and then I say that, but I haven't. I mean, I'm somebody who just wants. I'm somebody who wants this world to change for the better. I want the basic necessities. I want everybody to have access to a first-class education and quality health care, and I'm going to choose the path best to get us there.
All right.
Now, you went to an HBCU.
I did.
How do you feel about African-American community going to black colleges?
Oh, man, we got to keep going. We got to keep sending the best and brightest. I mean, the majority of our black doctors, majority of our black lawyers go to HBCUs. The best radio personality in this room went to an no, I'm just
I didn't go to college. Oh, okay.
Oh, Envy didn't graduate.
That's fine.
No, I sure did graduate.
Oh, I
did my time.
It took him 7 years. It took him 7 years.
Now, did you pay all your fines so you could actually get your degree?
I got my degree.
Oh, okay.
I got my degree.
But not
4.5 years.
My dad is president of Voorhees College, and I think that these HBCUs play a role, and that's why one of the things I did when Bernie Sanders came out with his college plan, and it was just absent of HBCUs, I pushed back, because if Bernie Sanders is the nominee, you need to make HBCUs a part of your lexicon. I mean, we need to be having a discussion about the viability of these institutions, and they do play a role. And
Bernie's been saying college isn't affordable, so he wants to make it free.
Public colleges.
Public colleges free. I mean, none of them are affordable, really. HBCUs.
Well, I mean,
too?
you got to look at the fine print. So let's talk about that for a minute. When somebody tells you that they have a pet unicorn out back, you just don't say, okay. You want to go and actually touch and feel, and you want to see if that's an ice cream cone on his forehead or not.
Just shooting a shot at
so, I mean, but look, I mean, the fact of the matter is that if you want to make this work, it's going to cost about $75 billion a year. And he has a plan for the 40, but then you have about $23 billion that has to come from the states. So you're talking about a Governor Nikki Haley in South Carolina, or Governor Nathan Deal, or Pat McCrory in North Carolina and Georgia, or you can look at Rick Scott in Florida, or John Kasich in Ohio. Are they going to chip into this program? I mean, you're talking about governors outside of Kasich who didn't even accept the free Medicaid expansion money, free money, who didn't accept it. So, and many of these states can't afford it. So what happens? Are these states that can't afford it, do they just not participate? I mean, there's so many holes and so many gaps and so many questions you have to ask.
It's not realistic.
No, it's not. It's fundamentally not realistic. And I think
good.
It sounds good. And that's what I tell people all the time. If somebody wants to offer you something free, and don't become intellectually lazy, let's actually kick the tires a little bit, and let's look at the fine print of it.
The local is important, because I always tell people, like, when they talk about free college, and it's like, it's cheaper than war. But I'm like, war is a federal issue.
Well, right? I mean, so colleges to a certain extent too. I mean, you have Hillary, who wants to build this kind of block grant program for states, so that what happens is states have divested, have taken money out of higher education, and what we want to do, or what she wants to do, is have this grant program so that states can actually make tuition lower, so that they can cap tuition or things of that sort, and they can get money from the federal government, and you can use your Pell Grants for things other than tuition. Because a lot of times, if we're able to get tuition at a place where you can afford it, you still have other issues. I mean, if your car break down, or room or board or housing, and so I want to be able to use Pell Grants for those things. And she's not saying make college free by any stretch. In fact, she has this idea for financial aid where you go in, if college is $4,000, but you can afford to pay $1,000, then you pay $1,000, but you don't get strapped with that debt for something you can't afford. And then the government makes up the other $3,000. So,
do you think that Hillary would be talking about issues that face African Americans the way she is if Bernie wasn't? running?
And yes, and the reason being is because African Americans are the base of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, but this is the most we've ever seen like real African American issues talked about. I think so.
Well, I mean, I think Barack Obama talked about it.
Yeah,
Not like they do at the debates. Like they're asking about Black Lives Matter.
Well, I mean,
they're naming police shootings by name.
You are hitting a point because we can actually have a discussion about race that Barack Obama couldn't have.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, people were expecting or they would kind of devalue the black man having a discussion about race.
Yeah, you're biased.
But now you got two 70-year-old white people talking about our issues, and I love it. And that's why I love Black Lives Matter.
And it is something that comes up all the time in their debates, questions that people ask them. It matters to us.
That's what I'm telling you. I think it's because of Bernie. I think it's two reasons. I think it's because of Bernie and the rise of Black Lives Matter on social media.
I think I would actually give Black Lives Matter more credit because they pushed a lot of these issues to the forefront. They've even challenged Bernie Sanders to talk about these issues. And you asked one of the reasons that I supported Hillary over Bernie, and it also goes back to this. I mean, everything doesn't have to do with economic inequality. If we break up the banks or we fix Wall Street, then you're still gonna have people getting cavity searches on the side of the road because the police don't understand or practice good tactics. Not all police, but some. Right. If you fix the big banks and do these things, and you are still going to have people who don't have a hospital to go to within 30 miles like we see every day in rural parts of this country. So, I mean, it's more than just it's intersectionality. And until we begin to have that discussion, then we won't be talking about all the issues that matter.
Well, we appreciate you for joining us.
So what should they do, Bakari?
I want them to vote first. I want them to vote for Hillary second, but then don't think it's over because – I mean, listen, this Bernie Sanders versus Hillary Clinton battle is cool.
It's like,
but this ain't the real war. Mm-hmm. I mean, the real war comes when you have to beat Ted Cruz or Donald Trump because, I mean, the presidency does matter, and it's literally a battle for the soul of this country.
Get involved and educate yourself.
I believe that too. The soul of the country is at stake.
All right.
So www.respectmyvote.com. Go register to vote if you haven't.
Bakari Sellers, we appreciate you joining us.
My guy, Bakari.
Thank y'all for having me.
Future President of the United States of South Carolina.
It's The Breakfast Club. Good morning.
The Breakfast Club. Every weekday morning. Tune in